So I'm reading from Last Night at the Telegraph Club, a novel set in 1950s San Francisco. Two teenage girls, their parents came to America from China, and the girls are the first generation of their family born in this country, and they are bowling, and this might be their first date. They're not really sure of too much at this point. The bowling balls were lined up on the rack like a series of planets, marbleized blue and violet, sparkling red and deep green streaked with white. Lily chose the red one for luck because she suspected she'd be terrible at bowling, slid her fingers into the deep wells. That one's too big for you, Kath said. Try this one. She pointed to the smaller green one. And don't use your fingers to lift it. It's too heavy. Carry it with both hands. Lily was surprised by the ball's weight. How am I supposed to throw this? Laughter drifted from the mixed couples group a few lanes down. Lily granted over to see one of the men placing his hands on his girlfriend's hip, coaxing her into position while she tossed a flirtatious smile at him. You don't throw it, Kath said. Come over here. Lily carried her green bowling ball over to where Kath was standing, several feet away from the start of their lane. She could see the flirting couple out of the corner of her eye, the way the woman leaned into the man's hands. Square your hips, Kath told her. Lily turned toward her. Sorry, what way? The other way, Kath said, looking amused. And before Lily turned on her own, Kath reached out and touched her hip, gently nudging her to face the lane. She touched her for only a second, but Lily felt Kath's hand through the fabric of her skirt like a spark on her skin. Now put the fingers of your right hand in the holes, Kath said. You're right-handed, aren't you? Lily blinked and tried to shift her attention to the ball. Yes, it's so heavy. Hold the weight of the ball with your left. Right, like that. Now bend your knees and lean forward, but not too much. You're going to lead off with your right foot. Just walk toward the lane. Keep your eyes straight ahead. Swing your right arm back. You see how they're doing it down there? Right. Swing your arm and just let go. No, you don't need to throw it. Lily had tossed the ball heavily at the front of the lane. It smacked the polished wood with a wince-inducing crack and then spun into the gutter. I told you I'm not good at sports, Lily said ruefully. Maybe I should have just stayed with Miss Wyland's group. Over to their left, Miss Wyland was teaching several beginners, but Kath had convinced her she could teach Lily on her own. The rest of the GAA girls were split up among half a dozen lanes throughout the Loop Bowl. The group of mixed couples and a party of 4 men beside them were the only non-GAA patrons that afternoon. I should have showed you first, Kath said. Watch me this time. It's all about timing. That's what Miss Wyland says. You have to swing your arm in time with the way you walk. See? Lily watched Kath pick up a ball and hold it in front of her stomach. Then she started walking toward the lane, leading with her right leg as she swung the ball back with her right arm. She took 4 steps and slid her left foot along the polished wooden floor, extending her right leg behind her, as if she were curtsying to the bowling alley, and let go of the ball. It rolled down the oiled wood and struck down half the pins. That's great, Lily exclaimed. It would have been better if I got them all, but I'll go again. Maybe I can get a spare. Lily took a seat at the back of their lane to watch Kath try again. There was a pleasing rhythm to the way Kath moved, a smoothness to the arc of her arm, following before she released the ball. When she slid on the fourth step, dropping low to the ground, her skirt rose up and exposed the hollows behind her knees. The sight was unexpectedly intimate, and Lily averted her eyes. The men who were bowling nearby seemed to smoke and talk more than they actually bowled, and Lily saw a couple of them eye the GAA girls and grin at each other. There was a crashing sound as Kath's ball struck the last of the pins, and she let out a triumphant whoop before returning to Lily. You see, it's about momentum, Kath said. You don't have to throw it down the lane. The momentum will carry it. You want to go again? Lily was acutely aware of the men in the next lane, and she drew Kath down on the bench beside her and whispered, I think they're watching. Who? Lily turned her back on the men and said quietly, Those men behind me. When you bowl, your skirt goes up. Kath looked startled. She glanced over at their classmates, watching as they slid toward the lane and extended their legs back. Each time a girl bowled, her skirt rose up, exposing a flash of knee or thigh. And with those men watching, the ordinary motion of their bodies somehow became indecent, as if the girls were showing off their limbs to onlookers. Kath looked down at her hands, her cheeks turning a faint pink. Don't pay any attention to them, she said, but she didn't suggest picking up their bowling game again. The girls from the GAA down at the far end hadn't noticed they had an audience. They were still getting their lesson from Miss Wyland, who was instructing them on the proper way to walk toward the lane. The footwork is unhurried. You don't need to run at the lane, Lily heard her say. Her voice carried clearly in a break between the echoing, musical sounds of bowling balls crashing into pins. She watched Miss Wyland take her stance and begin her approach to the lane, her arm swinging back and releasing the ball, her right leg extending backward in that bowling lane curtsy. Miss Wyland was wearing trim-fitting khaki pants rather than a skirt, and Lily wondered if Miss Wyland had done that on purpose. Now, you see, you swing the ball back like a pendulum and simply let it go, Miss Wyland was saying. Miss Wyland's bowling ball spun down the right side of the lane and then hooked toward the center, rolling right into the space between the center pin and the one to its right. The crack of collisions echoed as the pins tumbled over. Lily could imagine it illustrated in a cartoon with the jagged-edged star of an explosion, and she immediately thought of rockets. It's all physics, she said suddenly. What? Kath said, puzzled. The bowling ball hitting the pins. It's Newton's third law. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's how rockets work. I think you've lost me. Sorry. Do you want me to explain? Sure. Lily reached for her book bag and pulled out a notebook and began to draw a diagram with a rocket and a stick figure of a human being. Kath, sitting beside her, leaned over to watch as she drew. How do you know all this? Kath asked. I've read about it, Lily said, trying to ignore the brush of Kath's knee against her leg. And my Aunt Judy has explained some of it to me. I'd love to go on a rocket. People can't go on rockets. It's too dangerous. Isn't that why it would be fun? Kath was close enough that Lily could feel the warmth from her body. Not for me. I get sick when the cable car goes downhill too fast. I'd definitely go. Kath leaned back, her shoulder grazing Lily's. Can you imagine how exciting it would be to go to the moon or to Mars? Arthur C. Clarke says it would take about 250 days to reach Mars. As long as a rocket can reach escape velocity, it doesn't take much more energy to keep flying all the way to Mars. How long would it take to get to the moon? 5 days or less. If we left tomorrow, we could be there by Tuesday. But we don't have the ability yet to launch a rocket that can escape Earth's gravity, and it's very dangerous. Lily tapped her pencil against her notebook, her equations forgotten. We'd have to shield the crew, if there was a crew, from radiation. It would be much safer to send automatic instruments. She gestured excitedly with her pencil and said, "Robots." The pencil nearly stabbed Kath in the leg. "Careful," Kath said, laughing and reaching for Lily's hand. "Sorry," Lily said, blushing. Kath eased the pencil from Lily's fingers and set it down on the bench. "Let's say you invent a rocket that can do it." "It's a fuel problem," Lily said. "Right, fuel. Let's say we get that right, and we can get people onto the rocket. What do you think it would be like to go to the moon?" Lily still felt the ghost of Kath's hand on hers. She tried to focus. "Well, we'd need to develop spacesuits too. Arthur C. Clarke said they might look like suits of armor." "Wouldn't that be funny?" "Why suits of armor?" "Because of the pressure. There's no pressure on the moon, so the suit would probably have to be rigid. So we'd be wearing suits of armor on the moon, like King Arthur and his knights. I guess if you meet some aliens, then you'd be prepared." Kath reached for the pencil and brandished it as if it were a sword. "On guard, aliens." Lily burst into laughter, and her notebook slid off her lap onto the floor. Kath picked it up to use as a shield, standing to strike a heroic pose. Lily covered her mouth, still laughing, and out of the corner of her eye she saw the group of men again. She had almost forgotten about them. Now they seemed somewhat pathetic. They were middle-aged and balding, dressed in ugly plaid shirts. There was a desperation to the way they were eyeing the girls. Whatever danger she had sensed from their attention had turned to pity, and with a burst of inspiration she stood up and went to the ball rack. "You see, I'll show you. It's physics," she joked to Kath. There was a certain pleasure in knowing that Kath was watching her, that Kath would keep her eyes trained on Lily's body as she released the bowling ball to spin down the lane, inexpertly, to be sure. And when the ball struck only one of the pins on the left side, she shrugged. "I'm not good, but it's still conservation of momentum. The moment the ball strikes the pins is exactly like the moment a rocket launches from the ground. It's an explosion." Kath came to pick up her bowling ball. "I think you've lost me with your analogy, but I don't think I need to know how it works. You're the one who's going to build the rockets, right?" Lily smiled. "Right." She stepped back to give Kath room to bowl, and also to block the men's view. I really love that chapter. It's really, it's very subtle. I just love it.